Hey guys. So this video, it's going to be about the trigger we've just set up. Essentially, what we're going to do is we're going to have it set up so that when I hit the trigger, something moves. Quite simple. You could do this where you trigger it and it triggers one of these continually moving platforms we've got. Or you could just do it where it moves from one point to another. So think of it like a door opening, that kind of thing. That would work. Just on a much smaller scale, the way I'll set it up. Let me just delete the one I've just done. I'm just going to quickly show you how to show the button going down, because that's the easiest thing to see. You hit the trigger, the button looks like it's triggered, and then we'll add something in there as well with the platform moving. It's fairly self-explanatory. The trigger's very similar to how it was before. The only thing is I realised that with a trigger, it's not going to go constantly up and down, so I only needed point B. So I removed that empty game object, didn't need it. So yeah, let's just get cracking. So as before, I've got my trigger script on here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click down here and add a new C# script, and this is going to be called movement triggered, because at the end of the day, that's what it is. It triggers the movement. So let's load this up. Here we go. Right. So this is quite easy. We're going to set up 3 variables at the top. We're going to have in a public trigger button, because obviously that's what we need. I'm going to call it trigger activation, just not to confuse it with anything else really. We're going to set up a public transform and a move to point, because just like we've done with all the other things for like these movements and rotations, we're just going to define a point that it moves from where it currently is to where it needs to be. The final thing we're going to set up is something we've had a few times now. It's public float for speed, because we're still going to use that same way of doing it. And yeah, you'll see. It's just going to be a case of potentially just really stealing lines from the other script, or you could rewrite them. So what I'm going to do to start with is in the update function, I need to first get this line here. So we're setting up the step event again. I can just copy and paste it. If you didn't see which script that's from, it's from the move to platform. It could also be the rotate to platform. It's the same for both of them. I could write it again, but there's no need to. I've already done it once, so I'm just going to continue that way. Right, next is an if statement. All we're essentially looking for is, has that trigger happened? So the way we do this is we go if trigger activation, which is obviously this up here, dot trigger activated equals true. And then just like any other if statement we've done, we're saying, right, if this happens, do this. So that's fairly self-explanatory. And then what I'm going to do is, just to be a little bit lazy, to be honest, I'm going to come in here and I'm just going to grab one of the lines for movement. So this one here, doesn't really matter which, we're going to change it. So yeah, we've got it all set up, the transform position, the move towards. The only thing that's going to be different is what this says here. So I'm going to change this to say move to point, and that's it. Essentially, we've taken 2 lines from another script and put an if statement in there, and that's all we need for this to be triggered. So I'll save this and I'll show you how you can use it in a couple of different ways. So to start with, I'm just going to put this on the button. Give it a second just to register. I've just changed something. So it's asking me for, right, which trigger is it? Well, it's that one. It's simple as that, isn't it? Which point am I moving to? Well, you're moving to point B. And how fast? Well, we'll say 5. Doesn't really matter too much. What we need to take notice of here is just watch this side. So when I roll the ball up to it now, if I get there, as soon as I hit it, the button moves down. Very simple. You would expect to see some form of feedback to say the button's moved or whatever. So that works. I'm just going to show you on a slightly bigger scale. What I'm going to do is I'm going to move this. So just like I've done in the past, I'm going to grab this. So this is cube 5. I'm going to remove all the components but the transform, just to keep the position so I know it's going to exactly where it needs to be. I'm going to go into cube 6, put the move towards on there again, grab the move to point, grab the trigger from the trigger down there, and I'll set this to 5 as well. And what you'll see if I position the scene view where it needs to be is, even though it's the same trigger as the movement, it'll sort it. It'll do the same thing. As I approach this, the button will go down. There we go, and the platform will move across. So if you think about the possibilities of how you're able to use this trigger button movement thing, you can use it for doors, you can use it for elevators if you want, or just quite simply, like I've done there, to have a bit you can't get to unless you've hit the button. So the button could be the other end of the map. You could know, oh, actually I need to go and do that before I can get to there. Something quite simple like that. A couple of lines of code. It's code we've done before. We're just reusing it. We're just using the trigger that we've set up and moving from that. The same again would be the same for the rotation stuff as well. I don't really think I need to go through it, to be honest. I can just explain it, because if you look at the move trigger that we've just done, the only line that would need to change would be this one. And if we wanted to change it to be a rotation, all we would do is we would replace it with something that referenced the rotation. So yeah, again, move to point we would need to change. I'll edit this out just so that we obviously doing 2 slashes there means that line's read only. It doesn't do anything. But quite simply, if you wanted to change this instead of a movement trigger to a rotation trigger, that's all you'd need to do. So if I was to jump back into here where I've just set it up, it's gonna mess up our trigger here, but I'll be able to show you in terms of this. I'll spin that round, just on a random axis, to be fair. Smash this up a little bit because we know that the rotation could be a little bit slow. So, and, you know, the same again. If you watch just here, obviously the trigger won't do anything, but that's spinning. You know, that will get to a certain point, it'll stop spinning, and we've hit where it needs to be. Look, see? So same with that. Movement triggers, rotation triggers, they work in the same way. So I'm not going to do a separate video for a rotation. If you wanted the rotation, then do what I've just done there. But yeah, as I say, what we've done there is we've got a trigger that activates a rotation. These two here, so the move to platform and the rotate to platform, would be set up for like constant rotation. But using the same if statement we've got here, you could add it to that and that not be a problem. But yeah, move to trigger, and if you want to add the variation of rotate to trigger, here's the video for that. So yet again, another nice game mechanic that we've got. I'm just looking into at the minute what the next mechanic we're going to look to is. I'm hoping for something like pickups in terms of having to pick up a key for something to happen, or picking up so many different things to activate a trigger, something like that. I may even look into potentially the next video could be a couple of mechanics in one, because I'm looking to do a very small video on teleportation and anti-gravity, because they're really quite easy to do. So they might be my next videos, but I'm currently uncertain. But yeah, thanks a lot, guys. You know, another very easy video on how to do something that you can add into your game levels just to make them a little bit interesting. Cheers.